We're down to the final 12-week, 12-race stretch of the NASCAR Cup Series season, and it all starts this week with the Throwback race at Darlington. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining me this week. My name is Eric, and this is Out of the Groove. There's not a whole lot of NASCAR things to talk about this week, as we just had our final off weekend of the season. But it's a pretty well-timed off weekend, because now we have even more time to talk about and hype up the big Throwback weekend at Darlington this year. And we're just a couple days away. Last couple years, NASCAR has been doing the Throwback race at Darlington, where a handful of drivers have run throwback paint schemes. They've had, last season they had old school commentators come into the booth from old broadcasts. They've done this a couple years in a row now, but last year they really went all in. Almost every major team was running a throwback scheme. They did, like I said, they had the commentators, they had a lot of extra stuff. It became a huge deal. They really doubled down on all their efforts. And it seems like they've done the same this year. Once again, most all major teams are running some sort of throwback scheme. I can't wait to see what they pull out this weekend. NASCAR has wisely been able to use this as a major marketing tool that I think a lot of the fans are really like. NASCAR's fan base, when you look demographically, is still a little bit older than what you'd expect from a lot of other major sports, so a lot of those older fans, I'm sure, really enjoy seeing paint schemes, cars, people from 20, 30 years ago, sometimes a little sooner, a little older even sometimes. I think it's a great way to have the young drivers of the future, so the young fans have something to root for, still honoring and paying tribute to and paying respects to past legends, past champions, past greats of the sport. I think it's a really awesome idea, and I'm glad that they are continuing it. I think it's great as a once-a-year thing like this, and I think Darlington's a great track to do it at. I wonder if they keep doing throwback weekends like this. I wonder if they'll ever switch the track. We'll have like throwback weekend at Richmond or at Pocono, I don't know, something like that. I wonder if they'd ever change it. Anyway, before I get too into previewing Darlington, talking about my picks, I'm gonna review, discuss some of the paint schemes that we're gonna be seeing, some of that fun stuff. Before I get into all that, we got some big news that came out just earlier this week. On Tuesday, just a couple days ago, seemingly kind of out of nowhere, I don't feel like very many people had that big of a heads up that this was going to happen. Hendrick Motorsports made a major announcement. They announced that next year they will still be running 4 cars, as we all know, but they are changing some of the numbers around. William Byron, who was announced to be replacing Casey Kane, everyone assumed he was going to be replacing Casey Kane in the 5 car. He will be in the 24 car next season. That's right, the famous Jeff Gordon 24 that Chase Elliott's currently in. And Chase Elliott, who's been the 24 car the last 2 years, will switch to the 9 car. Still with Hendrick Motorsports, still probably going to have Napa as a sponsor, probably still going to have Alan Gustafson as his crew chief. I think the way they announced it was that basically everyone who's working on the 5 car right now is going to switch to the 24, and everyone who's working on the 24 car now is going to switch to the 9, so it's kind of just leapfrogging around, Everything's going to basically be the same, but now Chase Elliott, who has kind of inherited legions of fans that Jeff Gordon left behind by driving that 24 car, is now jumping to the 9, and William Byron, who has been in the 9 the last couple of years, in the Truck Series and now Xfinity Series, he will be in the 24. So it's going to be, I think it poses an interesting, conflict for fans. Like I said, a lot of people kind of, when Jeff Gordon retired, they naturally assumed, all right, Chase Elliott's my new favorite driver. He's good, up and coming. He's driving the 24 car, the hashtag 24ever or whatever, that whole deal. Now those fans, I guess, we'll see how loyal they are, how loyal they really were to Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott doesn't have a win yet this year. I hope he holds on to a lot of those fans. I think he will. But it'll be interesting to see if those fans were just fans of 24 or if they really are Chase Elliott fans. We'll see how that balances out. But it's an interesting announcement from Hendrick Motorsports for a lot of reasons. When I first read it, I kind of thought it seems kind of unnecessary. I mean, a lot of people who've been fans of Chase Elliott the last couple of years have just bought a bunch of 24 hats and die-cast and t-shirts. 24, Chase Elliott, big fan, And now, just 2 years into his career, kind of for no real necessary reason, he's switching to the 9 car. It's like that old Dale Earnhardt Jr. commercial. Those of you who are like less than 10 years old will have no idea what I'm talking about. There's an old Dale Jr. commercial back when he drove the 8 car years ago that they used to run, where it was a press conference where Dale Jr. jokingly said he was switching his number from the 8 to, I think it was the 67, and that commercial was very funny, people getting tattoos of 67 before he then reveals that it is a joke. And that's kind of, in a way, that's kind of what's happening here. All these Chase Elliott fans have adapted the 24 as their thing, and now for, like I said, not really a necessary reason. They have their reasons, but that wasn't like a mandatory thing. They've decided to change Chase Elliott to the 9. So it's interesting. I guess longtime Chase Elliott fans will be okay because, he drove the 9 car in the Xfinity Series, won a championship in that 9 car, so they might still have some leftover Xfinity merchandise they can, that'll be useful again. Meanwhile, of course, Jimmy Johnson will remain in the 48. Alex Bowman will remain in the 88 as was announced. So those are not presumably not going to change. I tend to think that one of the big reasons for the change was that Chase Elliott's dad, Bill Elliott, one of the more popular drivers from the sport from years ago, very famous for driving the 9 car. I guess now in a way this is like his son taking over the 9 car here many years later, and we assume it seems like Chase Elliott's going to have a pretty successful career. So I guess in the long run this makes sense for NASCAR, and it's probably a cool deal for Chase Elliott. I'm sure he was on board with the change. So we'll see what happens in terms of performance next year. I've been kind of cautiously optimistic, somewhat skeptical of the fact that, Casey Kane the last few years in the 5 and recently the 88 car, they've not run very well. It'll be interesting to see now that that 5 team is moving over to the 24 car with William Byron. Will the performance really ratchet up too much, or will they continue to kind of struggle the way they have been recently? I don't know how much control William Byron's really going to be able to have. Sometimes great drivers can't really do much if they got a crappy car. Obviously, William Byron's not a great driver yet. We don't know what kind of driver he's going to be. We tend to think he'll be good. He seems like he's decent. He's won a handful of races this year. I will say, and I talked about this on a stream the other day, I don't see... William Byron has not consistently proven to me in the Xfinity Series that he is going to be an immediate playoff championship contender in the Cup Series the way guys like Chase Elliott, Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones have in recent years. I think like last year in the Xfinity Series, most races were dominated by Kyle Busch, but often Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, a couple other guys like Justin Allgaier, or maybe Elliott Sadler were always right there in the top 5, very close to him. I feel like William Byron, I believe he has 3 wins in the Xfinity Series this year, but besides those 3 wins, I don't feel like I see him often contending against guys like Kyle Busch. I feel like Kyle Busch has really had no competition in the Xfinity races he's been this year because he hasn't had Jones or Suarez behind him. Now that could obviously just be equipment because, obviously Jones, Suarez, Kyle Busch, they were all in Gibbs equipment, so obviously they were all very good. But, I'm partially skeptical that Byron might struggle a little bit. I'm worried he's going to have his career is going to kind of start out the way Austin Dillon or Ricky Stenhouse's have. Stenhouse and Austin Dillon both had great success in the Xfinity Series, and they both come to the Cup Series, and the last few years they haven't been that good. In fact, both of them finally got their first career wins this year, and Austin Dillon's was kind of a luck win. So I don't mean to go off on a big tangent about William Byron. This episode's not really about him, but I am just wanting to point that out. I'm a little skeptical. You can mark my words there, If a year from now he wins Rookie of the Year, wins 3 races next season, you guys can come back and give me crap all you want. But I'm just voicing my opinion there that I'm a little skeptical that William Byron might struggle a little bit out of the gates. But we'll see. Time will tell. That was really the only big news story I wanted to talk about today that came out in the last few days, so I guess moving on to Darlington. Last year we saw some amazing paint schemes, throwback schemes that were just that fan favorites. Fans really liked a lot of them, and this year we've seen some pretty cool ones as well, so I thought we'd take a look at some of the ones that we will be seeing on Sunday night. Okay, so I'm not going to look at all of them, but we have for starters here one that I like from what I've seen is Jamie McMurray's number 1 car. One thing you'll kind of notice on this one that you'll actually notice probably on quite a few of the ones I'm going to show you is that they've really changed the font of the numbering on a lot of these paint schemes. I don't remember last year. I don't feel like very many cars really changed the font of the numbering to kind of match the throwback. They kind of just changed the paint scheme only, and I kind of think it's cool that they've altered the numbering. Like in this case, this scheme is honoring David Pearson, who won, I think I read he won like 10 races at Darlington. So yeah, he's a legend for many reasons, but definitely was apparently one of the best at Darlington. These look very cool to me. Both Austin Dillon and Ryan Newman actually in the 3 and 31 cars will be running very similar looking paint schemes honoring this very classic, very iconic looking Dale Earnhardt car. As far as like honoring a throwback goes, this is basically just honoring an old Busch beer ad, but this is a cool looking car. I'll give Harvick credit there, so at least, at least it looks cool, I guess. As a longtime Roush Racing fan like myself, I really like Trevor Bayne's 6 car right here. This was one of Mark Martin's earliest paint schemes. And speaking like I did of altered numbers, altered fonts on the numbers, Denny Hamlin's car got flames coming off the numbers. And also more Mark Martin. I was never like a big Mark Martin fan. I appreciate what he did for the sport, and I always liked him when he was racing, but here's another Mark Martin inspired paint scheme. So he's he's very popular, I guess, this weekend. And again, talking about Roush Fenway Racing, I really like their throwbacks this year. This is Ricky Stenhouse honoring Darrell Waltrip, and again, with the changed font, I really like the 17 on there. This is one of this, even just looking like paint scheme wise, just looking at it, I really like the look of this one. And there's Matt Kenseth running one of his own paint schemes. You're getting old and possibly near retirement when you start running your own throwback schemes. This is a close resemblance, somewhat, not quite the same color, similar pattern to Matt Kenseth's first career Xfinity Series win from back in, I think, like 1998. I like this Joey Logano car, but I just have to say, the last like 5 or 6 years, I feel like the 22 Pennzoil car has had the exact same paint scheme, and to be fair, this doesn't really look that different from that. So it seems like they just have one paint scheme in that organization, and they really can't stray too far from it. And speaking of Chase Elliott and his father, Bill Elliott, Chase Elliott's throwback scheme car is resemblant of one of Bill Elliott's early early cars that he ran. A lot of blue, a lot of interesting shades of blue on this one. Here's another one. At first glance, you probably wouldn't even realize this was Kyle Larson's car because the numbering and the logos and everything don't look anything like what you'd expect from a Kyle Larson car, but I do like the look of this one as well. And of course, you can never really get tired of the petty blue 43 car. This one is interesting because, one, I like the way it looks for Jimmy. It looks kind of similar to the one he ran last year in the Throwback race, but this one's modeled not after an old race car, it's modeled after the way Lowe's brand trucks used to look, which I read just now, and I think that's very interesting, kind of fun that that's what they modeled it after. And then of course Junior Nation's gotta really love this one. I like the look of it. This is Dale Earnhardt Jr. throwing back to one of his own schemes from back when he won back-to-back Xfinity Series titles in 1998 and 1999. So this is a very similar paint scheme to what we saw way back when. And yeah, so anyway, that's not all of the throwback paint schemes. There's some I left out, but those are some of the ones I thought looked the best, some of my favorites, some of the most well-known drivers or well-known, honorary paint schemes. Very recognizable, a lot of those were. So now you've seen a lot of the field that's going to be racing this weekend. Let's talk about some of the favorites. I should talk a little bit about the point standings, but I talked about that some last week. I think you'll get the idea. It's several drivers on the bubble. Guys like Clint Boyer, Joey Logano, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez are really win or you're not going to make it in at this moment. 2 races to go. They're both pretty far back. They're going to need to win to bump out either Chase Elliott, Matt Kenseth, or Jamie McMurray. Now, all those guys I just named, I wouldn't really say any of them are the favorites this weekend. Darlington is one of the more difficult tracks on the circuit, tends to favor veterans or at least drivers who have good experience there. It's a track we don't typically see young drivers do super well at. That's why I think Jones, Suarez, and maybe even Chase Elliott, I'm not really loving their odds of getting their first wins. Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota in general has been very strong in recent weeks. They finished 1 through 4 in the last race at Bristol. Now, Darlington's a very different track from Bristol, but that, needless to say, I think Toyota will be strong again. But if you ask me, I have kind of a weird feeling that we're going to see some drivers that we're used to seeing up towards the front, but we haven't necessarily seen up there a lot recently. We had an off weekend this week. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, it's now just a final 12-week run of the season. We got 2 more regular season races and then the playoffs start. So I think at this point, a few of these big name drivers that we haven't heard a whole lot about in recent weeks, I think now they're finally ready to step up their game. It's time to build momentum heading into the playoffs. The playoffs are almost upon us. Showtime, I expect some drivers that we've not seen really running quite as well in the last month or so to maybe start stepping it up, specifically some veterans. And I'm talking about Jimmy Johnson, who won 3 races earlier in the season, but he hasn't done a whole lot since then. I'm talking about like Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, a couple of former champions who've run well. Overall this season, they've run okay. They each have wins. They've run well in the past. I think it's about time they start to step it up again and lead laps possibly this weekend at Darlington. I'll be very interested to see how Kyle Larson performs this weekend because Kyle Larson came out of the gate so strong this season. Several episodes in a row, we basically just talked about how amazing them coming out of nowhere was. But since then, last little bit, he's cooled off a little. He hasn't really been leading nearly as many laps. He hasn't been in contention to win much in the last month or two. But I think it'll be interesting to see if Kyle Larson, because he's a pretty young driver, but he's had success at a lot of different racetracks now in his career. I'd be interested to see how well they perform this weekend at a tougher track like Darlington. Everyone says Larson likes to run the high side. Darlington is all about running the high side, so maybe this track will fit him perfectly. Of course, we cannot count out Martin Truex Jr. I talked about Toyotas. I know Martin Truex Jr. has been strong, dominated many races, so he's been good just about anywhere. He's won at Darlington before. I think he's definitely a pretty safe pick, but I'm not feeling too safe today. I'm going with Denny Hamlin to win this weekend at Darlington. And I know that might be kind of surprising. I did just say Toyotas have been running well, but then I went on to say how good I think Jimmy Johnson and other guys are going to do. I'm feeling Denny Hamlin. Hamlin got a win earlier this season at New Hampshire. They've been running better lately, had a top 5 at Bristol. I just have a hunch. And I talked about how this track typically favors veterans. Denny Hamlin, he's a veteran of the sport. He's got plenty of experience, more experience than a lot of guys in the field these days. So, yeah, I'm feeling Denny. But it will definitely be interesting to see how this whole weekend, this whole race shakes up. Anyway, I'm about done. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's my show. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I do appreciate all of the well wishes and support I've seen on social media and I've gotten personally about hurricane/tropical storm Harvey. As y'all know, or hopefully know, Houston, my hometown, has been it's been pretty much devastated by this hurricane. Everywhere I look, many friends of mine have had their houses flooded. It's been just a mess down there. I am in Austin, Texas, and I have been really since a few days before the storm hit. So I've really been on the outskirts of the whole thing. I've only had to hear about what my family and people have gone through. My family's had to deal with some damage and stuff. Not too bad, relatively speaking, but I really appreciate all of the nice comments I've gotten. I've tried to pass them along to them because they're the ones who probably need them more than I have. But I really do appreciate it. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoy the race this weekend. Hope you enjoy next week's episode. I should probably talk about Double E Cup Series. I'm in college. I have not gotten started yet on race number 8. I'm going to get started on it as soon as I can. It'll be up probably in less than 2 weeks, but I cannot put a hard date on it because I just have a lot of other responsibilities calling my name right now in the last few days, and for the next, several months, probably gonna be like that. So I'm gonna try to get to work on it as soon as possible. I think the Toyota diecast just came out or about to come out, so hopefully the next race or the race after, we'll start to see some of those new Toyota cars finally at long last. So I guess there's that to look forward to, if anything. But anyway, guys, thanks again for watching. Thank you for all your support, and I'll see you again next Thursday. Have a good one.